Well, thank you very much for coming. It's been a very busy day, a fun-filled day. It's been a lot of celebration. We do have some business. We still have some business to attend to in the first day in, and I wanted to take the opportunity to sign a number of executive orders that I will sign first and then explain at the podium and take questions. This is Executive Order number 1-16, which creates the position of Office of Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer. And we will do this. Okay. The second is amending the Executive Order 3-12, which is the anti-discriminatory policy relating to the participation of minority, women, and disabled businesses in city contracts, and that relates to the creation of the Chief Diversity Officer, which will allow the Chief Diversity Officer now to participate in that process by law or by executive order. Third is Executive Order -216, which is the extension of the Chief Integrity Officer, which is one of the, I think, the first commitment that this administration made as that I made as a candidate to extend and keep on Amy Curlin and her staff doing a terrific job at rooting out corruption, waste, and fraud, and we're happy that she's agreed to stay on. Next is Executive Order 3-16, which creates the Office of Planning and Development that Ann Fedulin is going to take. The office will not be in effect until 2017. However, there are things that we had to put in place now to create the office so that it was ready to go full speed in 17, and she has started already. The next is Executive Order number 4-16, which creates the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, which Rebecca Reinert will fill, and is a cabinet-level position and reports to the mayor, and the CAO will focus on improving the way city allocates resources, acquires goods and services, the way it hires, trains, and does everything that needs to be improved in the city. Excuse me. And finally, Executive Order 5-16, which states that authorities will not cooperate with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainer request for undocumented citizens who are arrested and would have otherwise been released from custody, unless the individual has committed a first or second-degree felony. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to make sure that we make an announcement that a Code Blue is now in effect. It began this morning, Monday at 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. Tuesday, January 5th. Code Blues are declared by the Office of Supporting Housing and to activate emergency shelter services. So if there's a person on the street that appears to be homeless, please call the Homeless Outreach Hotline at 215-232-1984. A response team will be dispatched to his or her location. So very important. We've had a very small amount of cold weather this season, and it's been much more tropical in feel, but old man winter's here, and the temperatures are plummeting, and we want to make sure that we get our vulnerable people off the street. So please, it's incumbent upon all of us. I do this myself. If I'm walking in a neighborhood or I'm driving by someone and I see them out there, I get on the hotline and make a call. They are responsive. They do come out and deal with people's needs and get them off the street and get them into a warm place so that they're safe. And I was going to walk over here. This is not a Marco Rubio moment, but I need some water. Just thought I'd throw that in there. So with that, I'd like to ask the press if they have any questions, please. The only way that the federal government, the local government, and law enforcement is going to have a cooperative and productive relationship is if it's done through the community. It can't come from the top down. It can't come from the federal government down. It can't come from the city government down. It has to come from the community up, because the only way that people buy in to what we're trying to do is when they understand what we're doing and have input into the process. Had a conversation a number of weeks ago with Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson and his top deputy, and they promised that under this new PEP program, they will come out into the community, sit with the advocates, sit with the community people, and sit with our immigrant communities and explain why this program is better than secure communities and why it is not offensive and why it is something that they should embrace at some point in time and understand. You can't expect people to understand something and embrace something when their only experience has been not wanting to be seen by anyone and winding up, being rousted and rounded up and held without a warrant. And we think that the Constitution is important, and if you want to hold somebody against their will without a warrant, that's unconstitutional. So we wanted to give Homeland Security and their folks the time. They were very nice about and very open about working with our communities on an individual, direct basis to talk to people and explain to them why this new program should not be they should not fear this new program, and why it is something that will be effective. And until that happens, we're going back to our old situation. And as we move forward, we hope that we bring our communities together with our federal government, local law enforcement, and everybody feels safe and secure.
Mayor, what's the distinction between what you signed today and what your governor signed last week?
Well, what he signed last week or what he signed originally?
Last week.
There's nothing in common with it. We're going back to what he originally signed with the additional information in the whereas clauses that we have had, that we understand is a new program that the federal government has put in place, and that this, according to the federal government and Homeland Security, this is a different program than secure communities. It is a more understanding and more reasonable approach to this issue, and the people who are living in our city who feel that they have to fear the federal government and so then fear our own police need to be made to understand that this is not secure communities. This is a different program, and they need to understand it, accept it, and then we can move forward.
So explain what the original restriction was.
I don't have Mayor Nutter's second executive order. I'm only aware of the first one.
Your executive order does well. Who is?
Hold on. Do they have copies of this or not? Were you given copies of it? Executive Order 516 states that all city authorities will not cooperate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainer requests for undocumented citizens who were arrested and would otherwise have been released from custody, unless the individual has committed a first or second-degree felony involving violence. The Executive Order also rescinds Executive Order 7-15, policy regarding U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency detainer and notification requests in instances of terrorism or violence. So you cannot be held for anything other than what's been stated in here, and that was also the whereas clauses in the executive order, which are in there, explain that there will be a process in place with the cooperation of the federal government to talk to our folks who live in our neighborhoods and explain to them why PEP is better than secure communities.
Mayor, why these five executive orders was all, and we're going to send a message to First Nations administration?
I mean, we wanted to get Mr. Atkinson and Ms. Reinert and Nan Fadulin and Amy Curlin, reestablished, and that's basically the four there, and the five is what we had promised we would do first day in, and that is remove the most recent executive order signed by former Mayor Nutter.
Mayor, you're here, first day.
Feeling good, a little tired. I'll tell you what, but the invention of iPhone cameras have caused politicians a lot of grief. It's certainly harder to get through a line, and I appreciate it, because when people stop asking you to take your picture, you should worry. So it's the first day out, people are excited, but it's strenuous to move down the couple hallways in City Hall with hundreds of people, and everyone wants to take your picture and stop and talk with you. So we went through it was a little emotional today at swearing in. My parents are still with me, and my dad was a firefighter, and as I said in the speech, he was promoted in this room, my first visit to City Hall. So sometimes the emotion of a day like this takes a little bit of your energy away. I feel good. We're going to go from here soon and go over and raise a lot of money for our public schools through that 501c3 nonprofit, the Fund for the Philadelphia School District, and we're going to get back in place many of these art programs, music programs, after-school programs that have been taken away because of Harrisburg budget cuts, and we're going to continue raising money that way, and also through things like the leasing of the luxury suites at the sports complexes and other innovative ways of raising money to provide the services and programs that were taken away because of the lack of appropriate funding from Harrisburg. But we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to raise money so these kids can have a good school experience, and I think that's really, really important. Yes, Floyd.
Can you expand on your plan for veterans, vulnerable veterans in the city? And are you comfortable with the current infrastructure?
Well, I think obviously post-stress PSDC is a serious issue when it comes to our veterans. The suicide rate of veterans is atrocious compared to the general non-veteran public, and we're having to have discussions with our folks in behavioral health to see if there's some way that resources in behavioral health, if not fully implemented now for our veterans, can be expanded to our veterans community. For a person to serve, a man or woman to serve our country, sacrifice their family, come back, and then wind up taking their own life without any effort or little effort to change the psychology of what they're going through is unconscionable, and we should be ashamed as Americans to allow these folks to kill themselves and to be in that situation because they serve their country.
Talk about your pledge to cooperate with city council. This is a new era.
Say again, I'm sorry?
Can you talk about your pledge to cooperate with city council? This is a new era.
Well, look, I mean, I wouldn't, the relationship between the Nutter administration and council, I think sometimes is overblown. I think sometimes it was overblown because it makes a better story than not. I mean, there were certainly problems, Philadelphia Gas Works and some other things that were clearly a problem. The key, from my perspective, is that they're independently elected officials, as I am. They deserve the same respect that I expect from them. Their staffs are smart and dedicated. Our staffs are smart and dedicated. Us working together in concert certainly bodes much better for a good outcome than trying to just kind of be the singles tennis player and do it yourself. So again, I'll go to my ad nauseum point guard example, but working together as a team and knowing the plays, running the skills of each person to the best outcome, I think really makes a difference. And Darryl Clark and I are friends, colleagues. We will have our differences, but we'll probably have our differences in private, not in public, and we'll work it out, and we'll try to figure out how we move this entire company, this city forward.
One of the things that you said in the inauguration, which we got a lot of that, is your Black Lives Matter
Yep.
statement. Why did you think that was important statement?
Well, it was two statements. One was Black Lives Matter, and they do. And the second statement is that our vast majority of our police force are dedicated, hardworking public servants who are willing to lay down their life I called him on the cell phone, and I said, where are we on this? Because he said, I'm way ahead of you. He said, we're way down the road. We're setting up those meetings, having that interaction, and having a dialogue that is respectful, to have young people in our community, people of color especially, and police officers understand each other's situation, what an officer faces and what a citizen faces in the interaction between law enforcement and the citizenry. And that can be done, that can be worked on, that can be improved, it can be enhanced, and we can get to a situation. I saw a young man testified or was interviewed, I think in Camden last night or something, and he said that he wanted his goal, he looked like he was African-American male, looked like he was about maybe 30, 35 years old. He said he wanted his child to have a good relationship with the police when he became a teenager, that he would be comfortable and confident to be able to call a police officer, approach a police officer, and ask for help and feel confident and comfortable that that was going to happen. And that, to me, is a good faith effort to want to have a situation as we move forward together where young people in our city feel the same way I felt growing up. And when my parents told me, if you have a problem, you run into a problem in the neighborhoods, go find a police officer, they'll help you with your problem. That is not an issue, that's not something that every parent in every neighborhood tells their kids. And that is something we all need to work on. And that's why it was important to make that statement in the inaugural address, but it was also important to recognize the contribution and efforts and sacrifice that our police officers make.
So, Mayor, if I could just follow up on that. What will the minority community see differently or see in your administration under Commissioner Ross that you don't think they have?
Well, we're working on the issues relative to stop and frisk. We've been having ongoing conversations, and I'm not ready at this point to make that announcement or to give you further information other than the fact that we are talking diligently about that issue. We're talking about recruitment, how we recruit officers, how sometimes our civil service regulations create a situation unintended where the department is not as diverse as it could be. It's better certainly than it was when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, but it's not where it should be. Again, body cameras are a wonderful is a piloted tool in I think the 22nd district now, and would like to see it expanded citywide so that the picture tells the story and not he said, she said, and also having in our academy an ongoing training in the field on how you interact with people and how you talk to people and how we have conversations with folks on how we treat each other like human beings respectfully in a difficult situation sometimes where a crime has been committed or people are looking for someone who fit a description, explaining to a person that they fit that description and why they were stopped. There's lots of opportunities to improve what we're doing, and they're just some examples. Yes, Flood.
Speaking of the police, would you like to comment on Friday, the Mummers Parade? Some people were solving.
Look. No, I was not on scene, on site there, so it's hard for me to make a judgment on why an arrest was made or not made. That is, I assume, in the written report and will be understood and analyzed by the leadership in the police department, and they'll understand, why that action was taken. Mummers Parade it's a wild event, and as someone who's participated in it for 35 years, I don't anymore. I got a little too old and time consuming, but it's a difficult thing to police and to monitor. I mean, the stuff on Broad Street and then on 2nd Street. I mean, it's a hard job to be a police officer on 2nd Street on New Year's night. So I don't know the answer to your question specifically why these individuals were taken into custody. I think it was two or three. Don't know that. I know that the gentleman who was assaulted on Broad Street, the chemist, he filed a complaint. Central detectives are working on that complaint. I don't know if there's any video or not. Hopefully there is. We would like to make an arrest and for the person that did that. And I think there's been lots of strides that the Mummers Parade has made over the years, but there's always that one dumb thing that happens that really does affect people and offend people, and we have to kind of start over, and we're working on that with our Human Relations Commission folks and our LGBT affairs leader, Nellie Fitzpatrick.
Just to follow up, but about the public training, how do you feel about that?
When you have a tradition that is as long as it is, it's more than 100 years, probably has been part of the tradition for a long time. I think that it is kind of crazy for us to ask our officers to be taking beer out of people's hands and creating that interaction, which is, I think the rule of thumb has generally been that if people are behaving themselves, they're not crazily drinking out and they're kind of keeping it to themselves, that they're left alone. I remember years when police officers were instructed to go up with shopping carts and to take, large amounts of beer off of people. I know that on 2nd Street, for example, there was a kind of a paying more attention to young people with backpacks who may have been coming in from New Jersey or coming from the suburbs with iced up beer in the backpack, and they were being taken off them. So, it's a balance. Policing is a balance. I mean, you can't have a one-way answer to something. Well, you can't drink in public, so everybody who's got a beer in their hand is going to be arrested. We don't have enough room we don't have enough transport to get people to the jail and process them. It would be crazy. So you try to do your best to make things safe as possible for people, even in an alcohol-fueled environment. It's doing the best we do the best we can do. So, all right, thank you everybody. Thanks for coming. Nice seeing you all. Happy New Year.